Howdy, folks. It is Monday, June the 6th. I'm Jacob Cohen, and right now you are listening to The Hustle Daily Show. Later in today's episode, the metaverse. Ever heard of it? Think it's a pointless joke, perhaps? Yeah, well, you may be right, but we are going to be talking about two unsuspecting, honestly kind of funny metaverse use cases that are already underway: comedy and weed. Brace for impact, it's going to be good. But before we get to that, here are a couple quick things you should know. Let's get crack-a-lackin'. All right, first things first. Harry Styles' Harry's House album brought in $7.26 million in U.S. sales during its first week out. I don't know if you heard the song, Music for a Sushi Restaurant. Not going to sugarcoat it. It's a certified bop. But here's the kicker. 4.49 million of those earnings I mentioned earlier came from 182,000 vinyl sales. Physical music, people. Can you believe it? Vinyl has exploded in recent years, a trend we've explored in one of our Sunday stories that you should go check out online. Vinyl records are highly profitable. Bands can make around $18 in profit off each one, and the number of vinyl records sold has increased every year since 2006, fueled largely by millennial hipsters under the age of 35. Moving along, everyone's feeling inflation, even Formula One racing. Teams like Red Bull, Ferrari, and Mercedes are worried the uptick in prices across things like logistics and energy will push them over the sport's $140 million budget cap for each team. Moving ahead, on Friday, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration said it recently asked Tesla to respond to reports on 758 incidents of unexpected phantom braking, as it calls it, in Tesla cars that occurred in 2021 and 2022. Speaking of, Elon Musk sent an email to all Tesla employees saying the company is cutting 10% of salaried staff. Not the email you want to get in your inbox, that's for sure. The writing was on the wall, though. It came after Elon sent emails to staff about banning remote work in the company and saying those who wish to work remotely should go pretend to work somewhere else. Keeping it rolling, according to the Center for Retail Research, British consumers were expected to spend $510 million on festivities and souvenirs for Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee this past weekend, marking her 70th anniversary as Queen. Nice. And finally, retailers are dealing with inventory problems. They've got too many clothes on their hands, people. Too many clothes. The result of a combo punch of inflation, rising costs. People have less discretionary money to spend on things they do not need as much as things like gas, food, and shelter, as well as a rapid bounce back away from the casual styles of the pandemic to more formal attire as people go back to the office, go out for dinner, right? They want to look nice, and that's a hard trend to track as a massive retailer. Walmart said 20% of its inventory are items it wishes it didn't have. And American Eagle's inventory at the end of April was 46% higher than at the same time last year. And now, I think it is time to talk about what some refer to as the holy trinity of tech and business: the metaverse, comedy, and weed. So chances are, if you read our newsletter or listen to the show, you've heard about the metaverse a lot. Or maybe not, but either way, the metaverse is being developed, and for context, it's really not one thing, place, or platform. As is, practically speaking, it's really just any platform that enables a high level of live virtual interaction, transaction, activity between people, virtual worlds, if you will, that for the most part, honestly, look like kind of low-quality video games in their current state. For some, you wear VR goggles. For others, you don't need to. If you want to get a good idea of where some folks want it to be, just watch the movie Ready Player One. But Meta, Facebook, Zuckerberg, they're all spending a gazunta amount of cash on metaverse projects. Meta recently had more than 6 times the job openings for its Oculus division than for Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp combined. But a lot of people ask, who gives a shit? This is pointless. Why would I go onto these platforms to do anything? To hang out, to work? Are you kidding me? Are you out of your mind? And right now, I'm not going to try to make a point either way, but I am going to discuss 2 use cases that might just surprise you a bit, might just make you consider what the potential for platforms like these are. So first off, who here likes comedy clubs? Anyone like comedy clubs? I'm a fan of comedy clubs. But you know what I'm not a fan of? Listening to a comedian do stand-up on Zoom. That is just one thing I'd like to never do again. Unpleasant experience. Potentially less unpleasant, though, are live metaverse comedy shows, metaverse comedians, metaverse street comedy. There's a ton of activity happening in this space right now. On Meta's platform Horizon Worlds, for example, there are these virtual comedy clubs that you can just stroll on into, hang out with other people, listen to other people go up on stage live and perform stand-up as an avatar in front of you and your other avatar friends. You also have these oddball metaverse interactions becoming a regular source of laughter for many people. And there are these TikTok and YouTube channels that record all these interactions, kind of like what you might find on Comedy Central when comedians go out on the streets of New York or LA and share them and make videos about them. The hashtag for VR comedy has tens of millions of views on TikTok. I saw one clip of a VR courtroom that was about as orderly as you'd expect. The bits themselves are funny, but they're just especially hilarious when you consider the interactions are between legless avatars controlled by real people, all of whom are speaking into a 1-pound hunk of plastic strapped to their heads. And I think, as crazy as it sounds, you're going to see this continue to develop into real careers for some people as metaverse comedians, and as a real form of entertainment already is for many others. You know, someone actually reached out to me on Twitter recently telling me about a virtual comedy club they opened, one of two, they said, on Meta's platform at the time. And they just put on a show, they explained, once a week with real comedians. I think it's a fantastic business model and way for comedians to book more shows, and honestly, more convenient shows at that. So that's use case number one. As for the next use case, we're talking about the good old Mary J. Weed. It's rolling into the metaverse. It's got high aspirations. So what's happening? So basically, companies are preparing for a future in which U.S. regulation allows for the direct sale of marijuana on metaverse platforms. Until then, brands are looking to get creative with the tech. It's a great time to build a brand presence in the space. So one company that, as highlighted by the Wall Street Journal, is doing this is Higher Life CBD Dispensary, which recently opened a virtual brick and mortar storefront on a platform called Voxels that sees nearly 1,000 visitors daily. And basically the point is that it's a virtual dispensary where you can ideally look at the goods, I guess, interact with people who can explain things to you, what you're looking at, hang out, and then a virtual cash register links out to the actual website for purchasing these items. If the user experience is solid, I honestly think it's a compelling concept, because shopping for weed straight off a website is not very pleasant if you don't know what you're looking at. It's very confusing. So this is kind of a nice middle ground between the real-life brick-and-mortar dispensary and then just a straight-up website. But there are hurdles. As always, for starters, the scale is just not really there yet in this space. Globally, 11.2 million VR headsets were shipped in 2021. Many of the users of these headsets are also likely children who probably wouldn't even be allowed to purchase or even afford weed, even if it became legal to sell across the metaverse, if you will. Regulation also varies. Meta's Horizon Worlds, Roblox, and Sandbox, platforms that are all strictly against even linking out to marijuana sites. But all this is to say, now, when someone asks you about what the heck the purpose of the metaverse is, what the heck people are going to use it for, all you got to say is weed and comedy, folks. Weed and comedy. And bada bing, bada boom. That's going to do it for us today, folks. If you like what you heard, we've got a lot more tech and business coverage over at thehustle.co. Our editor today is Ezra Trupiano. Our executive producer is Darren Clark. I'm Jacob Cohen. Thanks for tuning in to The Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of the HubSpot Podcast Network. See you tomorrow.
Hey guys, if you listen to the Hustle Daily Show on Google Podcasts, we want to let you know that the option will no longer be available pretty soon. Google is sunsetting its podcast app sometime in early 2024 in favor of YouTube Music, and we want to give you a heads up before it's too late, since that time's almost here. The Hustle Daily Show is available everywhere and anywhere that you listen to podcasts, like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you're using YouTube Music, we are there as well. If you're an Android fan, there are plenty of apps like Overcast, Pocket Casts, Player FM, and more. So just search for us wherever you decide to listen to your favorite podcasts.